It's not a good place for skateboarding, let me tell you. not that we're going to do that, but Eastern Europe has a lot of profundity and depth to it. It's pretty nice. So we're still getting over the jet lag a little bit.
Oh, that's always fun.
Oh, yeah.
And how is the climate over there with everything that's kind of going on?
You mean the political?
Yeah.
It seemed to be untouched. It's a mecca for tourism. So not quite, I couldn't get a gauge on that. The people, the native people are kind of reserved. It's not like the U.S. where people are passionate and stuff, but they keep the cards close to their chest. But there wasn't any talk about Russia and all that stuff.
Well, that's good. So we are live. Looks like we've got a couple of viewers already. We're just gonna hang out for a little bit. I put some music on. Well, that's beautiful. And then how long were you in Prague?
Just for a week. Yeah, that was enough. We saw a couple of castles and did the Charles Bridge, and just walked around. Got lost a lot because the city is not on a grid like the U.S. Yeah. Well, how neat. Yeah, it was very neat.
Yeah. Well, we got a couple of viewers already. Anyone viewing, you can just put your name in the comments section. If you're looking at getting or wanting to get a message today. I'm Michelle Gower, a medium and author of the Living Sacred Soul Oracle deck. And today I have a special guest who I've known for a few years. ATN, do you want to? You wear a lot of hats, so can you give a quick bio about some of the things that you offer and who you are?
Well, yeah, who I am. It's taken many years to get there, but maybe that will give an understanding as we go along. But what I do, ministry. I'm an ordained minister. Non-denominational. I do massage. I do one-on-one counseling. I do author. So there's a lot of things I'm doing. And I must say that I'm pretty far behind in my writings. There are a couple of books that I wanted to have published already, but the only one published so far is The Sun Has No Shadow, which is a reflection of a lot of my younger experiences and awarenesses of divine and how that's applied in our practical daily living experience through relationships and healing oneself, healing others, and how we get along with people at the workplace. Is a very practical book on how we communicate, relate, interact with the world, with our surrounding world. And so what else do? I do the other human things too, as we all do.
Give me just 1 second. I'd like to show what your book looks like. The Sun Has No Shadow. Now, if someone were looking at buying this book, are you on Amazon?
I am. Kindle is probably the easiest way. It's inexpensive. It's usable. You can take it with you all day long. I've heard a lot of feedback that it's a slow read. It took me 5 years to actually write it because and early on I was in school for engineering, so I had trouble writing as a young boy and as a young adult actually, and then my life switched. My brain literally did a shift, and so math tends to be a little difficult for me now. I have to really think about it. And writing flows a lot easier. So during that transition period, it took me years because I was very meticulous on the words I wanted to use. So yeah, it was published in 2000, I believe 2008, and it may be a different published date that Amazon put down, but Kindle is the way.
All right. Well, that's great. I think it's interesting, when talk as spiritual people, right? Like how you find your way to this path. And especially, you know, I'm a massage therapist too, especially the kind of the roundabout way of the healer archetype, or probably the more of the wounded healer archetype, right?
Right.
which is interesting. And then, you know, because like you said, the brain switches, but really it's like the brain switches and suddenly you start seeing the magic, and suddenly you start connecting the dots where other people that you, maybe your loved ones, they don't understand, you know? So that's so profound.
Yeah. Eventually they will come to the side. I won't say the dark side, but they'll come to the light side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've known you for a couple of years, working at, you know, within the spiritualist camps. And I wanted to have you on here because I reached out to you after I had gotten some pretty devastating health news. Mm-hmm. And I did a couple of sessions with you. And at that time, I was, you know, anytime life throws at, it's almost like you're going down the interstate and a semi comes and T-bones you and everything is just scattered. You're walking around in a daze and you really have no idea how to even begin to pick up the pieces to move forward. And the thing is, we all move forward, right? And we all have a choice on how we move forward. And when it's your health, it's really interesting because, you know, you think it's something that just happens to you. But as from the healer knowledge that I had, like I knew that it was stuff that I had been carrying around a while. So it, you know, it just kind of imploded. And I had a couple of sessions with you, and I remember the exercise that you had suggested that I do, which I don't at this point. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about that because you'll remember it as soon as I tell you. Okay. So it had to deal with forgiveness. And it was really like like it was a body scan, like right before you go to bed. And then you think of it's a self-healing technique. You think of an instance in your life that you regret, right? There's something an instance that has a negative emotion attached to it. So, you know, just to give an example, like, you know, one time, there were lots of times, but one time, you know, like I acted out in anger, right? Yeah. And then you said to look past the anger and find the true emotion that was attached to it, whether it be vulnerability or insecurity. And then take that emotion and just smother it with love. Yeah. And I remember you saying, once you start doing this, it'll feel like worms just coming out of your body, because it'll be, you know, instance after instance after instance. And you know, I'll be honest with you, when I did that, you know, I started it just to kind of humor myself, like, okay, well, I'm gonna try something.
After you got T-boned by the semi.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was really my starting place. It was my starting place for healing. And, you know, I did it. And I had 3 days where I felt, I went to bed, but I do not feel like I slept. My mind was constantly it was just like you said, it was like worms coming up. And the release that I felt, you know, each day, and every day I would say to my husband, you wouldn't believe last night, I went to bed, but it was all these different things. Like I remembered things that, you know, when I was a little kid that happened, and that, you know, that I didn't even really remember, you know, never knew that memory even existed. And, you know, this is kind of a monumental time in my life, because like this week I had my 9-month scans. And you know, the oncologist says, you know, we can't even ask for anything better than where you're at right now. Like I couldn't, and in addition to that, they're even allowing me now to take, because I'm on these immunotherapy. I'm now pushed out to like 6 weeks, and so I'm getting my immunotherapy, and the oncology nurse is like, "Oh, they're doing something different with you," and I'm like, "Yeah." I go, "Every 6 weeks." I go, "Is that pretty common?" And she looked at me and she said, "No, we rarely ever see that." Wow. So it's
wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. It is wonderful. And it's so funny because, like, when you have to examine your life and put it back together and redesign it, especially when it comes to health, we want to always the human mind wants to polarize it. Like, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to live. And like, when people ask me, like, how did you get here? I say, I loved it with every ounce of my soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also myself. And I believe that the whole journey started with talking to you and getting that exercise. So with that, I'd like to have you talk about forgiveness and what that really means for us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful news, Michelle. There's so many, as you know, when you're when you want to say the right thing, there's so many different options that I could take our dialogue today. First of all, not everyone's going to have the same experiences that you came up. Yours are very lucid and precise and visceral and palpable, and some people will just ease through their experiences, and maybe they may not have the same conscious awareness. And that's beautiful that you have that to share that, and that's teaching for all of us. And I had my own stuff going on, call it a healing crisis, a couple of years ago too, and I did the same thing for myself. And years ago, I taught anatomy and physiology at the massage school that I attended. And so I have an advantage of knowing anatomy and physiology, and I was able to get into the different systems of the body, like the digestive, the respiratory, urinary, nervous, cardiovascular, and so on and so on. And it's the same principle that I use that I shared with you. And anyone who has young children, it's based on just loving our children, the child in us, basically. And those organs in us, if we can imagine that they're children, and they don't need our judgment, they need our love. And if we have, children, say we have like 4 kids, okay, 3 kids, or whatever the average is nowadays, 2.5, and a dog and a cat, right? So one of the children are maybe acting up, okay? They need, what they're calling for is our love. They're not calling for correction necessarily. They need our attention, right? And so the same thing happens to our bodies. And something's awry, or something's amiss, or something's out of harmony. What does it need? It doesn't need, oh, you did something bad, It needs our attention. It slows the mind down to give a focus. Say, okay, how can I love thee, right? And so when we love anyone, we give them attention, we give them interest. We find that they're very fascinating. And the same thing happens with the tissues and organs. It's extraordinarily fascinating. If we take time to look at the body, and the body, just like little kids, are extraordinarily responsive and sensitive to our focus. We don't even have to say anything, and the child or the tissue organ responds in the same vibration. We're busy judging, and in that judgment, cells are being made. Okay, millions upon millions of cells are being made. I don't know what the frequency is or their schedule, but depending on the organ, just in our time now, millions upon millions of cells have been recreated and destroyed. So why not have those cells recreated in a foundation of loving attention, or just the love vibration itself? Okay, so I'll just segue into forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key for everything, basically. But we have a misunderstanding of what forgiveness is. It's not about resolving conflict necessarily with another individual. It's basically, forgiveness is stop interpreting. Okay, stop giving meaning to something. And the way that I can understand this clearly is that there's a misunderstanding. Basically, God never forgives. First of all, let me go there. Plants don't forgive. Cats and dogs, they don't forgive. Yeah. For the basic reason that they never condemned or judged. Nature, God, is just the loving, open space of pure awareness. And everything is allowed. There's no judgment, there's no condemning, there's no criticizing, there's no disapproval. It is what it is. Humans, on the other hand, we find out that much of our thinking process has to do with I don't like it, or I do approve of it, or some kind of resistance, or just pulling back, finding safety. There's all of this mess that goes on in the mind that says I'm not all right. So in my own experience about forgiveness, I met a psychic medium back in my early 20s. And this was a time that I was going through so much anger and so much hate and so much fear, and was carjacked, and I withdrew from school 3 times, and, family problems, and, just everything that could have happened within a span of just a few years of what I interpreted as trauma. And so my emotions just got fired up, and I operated from ego at that time quite a bit. And ego is just the non-existent self. It's not who I am. It's just a made-up thought system. But that was what I took my instructions from. And the ego is all about I don't have enough, and I'm afraid of dying. And so it's all fight or flight kind of mechanism, mental, psychological mechanism. That's ego. And ego's good for when you put your hand on hot stove. That's instinctual. Okay, but the ego is not good for making up stories, but it does that cleverly. So I was from that, operating from the ego place. I was in a lot of pain, emotional pain. Was in a lot of separate relationships. I wasn't really relating. I felt isolated, alone, scared, confused. All these negative emotions, or I would say contracting emotions, they all relate. If you got one, you got them all. Okay, no different than divine. If you have love, then you have joy, and you have happiness and peace. They all live in the same family, so it doesn't matter. But I was living in the ego family, but I knew, because of my early experiences as a child and as a young adult and teenager, from the awarenesses and the spiritual awarenesses, the experiences of peace that I had as a child, that kind of that background was always there, that divine background of pure love, unconditional peace, and the joy that I knew was real. It wasn't in operation at the time. It wasn't my experience. So I knew truth, but I also had the truth of my experience, which was the anger, hate, and fear. And there was a huge discrepancy between the two. So in a lot of my travels during the time, I was in meditation. I was also angry. I was speaking out psychics, but I was also fearful. I was functioning on the spectrum, the extreme spectrums of both expressions of ego and divine, or at least attempting to get back into my divine. And I happened to meet this one psychic, and she said that you need to know forgiveness, or you need to you need to understand forgiveness, or something like that. And I kind of knew what that was at the time. I knew it from the human understanding, but it wasn't sufficient enough to make that shift inside that I needed, and for the healing that I was looking for, to not only minimize the pain and suffering, but to eliminate it totally. Because pain and suffering is not normal. Pain is part of the human experience. You put your hand in the socket or on the stove. That's part of the human experience. But suffering is not necessary. That was the only part of the reading. It was probably an hour reading, but that was the only part that stuck with me, because that's the part that touched my soul, that my soul needed to befriend, so to speak. So it took me years, decades, to really understand what the true forgiveness is. And that's basically what I mentioned before: stop interpreting. Or if I had had that understanding before, I could have saved many years of continued suffering. But it's kind of like a blueprint. It was a shift in being a victim to knowing who I really am. I am the creator of my experience here. And it's a way to really understand that is, truth is very simple. It's extraordinarily simple. It's just getting to that simplicity that we go through a complex, thought, I don't know what you call it. Just
we really screw it up.
we do. And all that's necessary because it develops other aspects in our intellect that's needed. So nothing's really wasted. But in the end, truth is very simple.
Yeah.
If we look at a dream, we sleep at night, and we're always the main character. Okay. And there may be a beautiful dream, maybe a nightmare, maybe situational circumstances, and people come in and out. But the common denominator is our awareness. And we may have a lot of trauma in that dream. And the only thing that really releases that nightmare, that trauma, is the waking up out of the dream. And it's like, thank God I woke up. So in the dream, we don't blame anyone. It just doesn't come. It just doesn't operate that way. We don't find fault with anyone. We are the main character, and everything else extends out of that. Everything else becomes in our awareness. We're the only common denominator in every dream.
Yep.
And if we pull that into our waking state, the principle is the same. Wherever we are there. Okay, we're the common element. And we each have our own individual worlds, and our worlds overlap because we share common psychological scripts and a common source. but each one of us, I mean, there's billions of us. I mean, it's over 7.5 billion.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, and they keep coming. So each one of us is forming our own individual worlds, and so the forgiveness part is I am the one who's creating this, and it's very arrogant for us to say that we're gods. But how else? There's a misunderstanding what God is. God basically is happiness, is love, is joy, is peace.
Yes.
The universe, life. Okay, it's not some dude, who's making judgment on us and pulling strings and all this. It is the essence of who we really are, at the most profound level of our identity. It's our source, and there's been many metaphors to share that, such as the drop in the ocean. Okay, the human parts. The Michelle, the ATN, the other names and labels of the 7.5 billion people. The human part is simply the agency, ways, and means for God to experience life in us and through us. Okay? And so the forgiveness, if we can look at that word, it's just forgive. Okay, 2 words. If we look at it, and the God is the peace, the love, the joy, the innocence, the divine attributes, is forgiving of itself, is to give forth the happiness, is to give forth the peace, is to give forth the joy, is to give forth the love and the innocence and the blessing. However, when it hits up against the human experience or the human label, because we have a lot of stuff here going on that we learn from life and we have to unlearn, and we have a lot of interpretations and judgments and likes and dislikes, we kind of put a block on that stuff. And, that God is the light, and the human mind and its trauma is like a prism, and it interprets that. And the good part about that is that it forms the world. It forms the beautiful world that we have. But we have opinions about that. And it's, and so we're prompted to balance and heal that because of our pain and suffering. Something's just not right. Okay, and so there's a mechanism in us that spots the suffering and pain, and something's not right, and we naturally give attention to correcting the mechanism. Something's not right, so all of us, no matter what, all of us are moving towards some kind of healing, whether it's in our thoughts, memories, or whether it's in our feelings, emotions, and sensations, or whether it's in the perception of the world, our 5 physical senses, how we perceive the world. We can look out in the world now, and we can all see that there's a lack of harmony on the surface level, but there's behind the surface, there's harmony. But is that my experience? Not necessarily. And so what's wrong here? What's wrong? Okay. So as an example, I need to forgive the world. Okay. That's a big one. I need to forgive the things that are going on in the world. What do I do? Instead of me judging the world as something bad, or that person's bad, that group is bad, that person's good, and taking sides, I have to remember, this is part of my creation. I am contributing either from the source of who I am, or I'm contributing from the ego. Because either I'm taking from either one. I'm taking from my unhealed memories, or I'm taking directly from the source of life itself. And that's going to show my world. That's who I'm attracting to me. That's my feedback system. And there's nothing else that I can do other than edit my own mind, just like the editor in the film. That light travels through the film and it casts an image. Okay, you don't go up to the image and try to change the image. The editor, will splice the film and take this out, add this, and that's what we have to do internally, because that's where we have, quote unquote, control. We can control who I choose to listen to. I can, in my personal case, I listen to the Holy Spirit. It helps. It gives me a symbol. So every moment I do my best to take guidance from what do you want me to say? What do you want me not to say? What do you who do you want me to see, and how, what, work through me, Holy Spirit. Okay, help me to allow you to work through me. It's easy. It would be easier, because it's so much momentum, to just have the knee-jerk reaction and take the guidance from the ego, because we're used to that. We have a lot of momentum, a lot of years, decades of just having knee-jerk, being safe reactions of the fight and flight. But we have to put a little pause, put a little pause and be vigilant on where am I pulling my instructions from, because all of our purposes and functions and goals basically is to experience the happiness and enjoy life here, and that is to understand truth, to experience love, and to perceive the beauty all around us. But we oftentimes will experience lies, we experience disharmony, or we see a distorted world. That's all ego. But our goal, purpose, and function is to be the God we are. I know this sounds, arrogant to maybe some people, but to be the happiness that we are, to be the peace that we really are. That's our natural nature.
I agree with you. I think that we have such I remember the first time that I heard someone saying that we were God experiencing just, one point of awareness. And I remember, this is years ago, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I joined a cult. I can't believe they said that. That's blasphemous. And I wasn't even a religious person. And it irritated every cell. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally what it is. Like, I get it.
Yeah. And that's from eons of unfortunate human definitions. And so we have to go into our own guidance. Tell me, let me understand the truth. If there's sincere earnestness, that is the gateway to get the truth and the love that we're after in our own intuition. If we're just experiencing, or just trying to experiment and making research and intellectual research, we're not going to get to the truth and love. But if there's a true yearning in the heart, we will receive that understanding. And the understanding for me is that the synonyms of God is the love and joy and peace. I don't care what you call it. God doesn't care about that.
Yeah. And the forgiveness aspect, really, that's a method that we use, right? This is what I'm getting from it. It's a method that we use that gives us the power to live in the moment. And when we truly are present in the moment, that is the only place that we find the things that we are constantly seeking, which are love, which are peace, which is happiness. You can't find happiness 3 weeks from now when you obtain this.
Right.
Happiness is right here, and you gotta clean the lens, right? Mm-hmm. You absolutely have to clean the lens. I know we still have a few viewers. Please, if you guys could put your name in the comments, we're gonna give a few readings, a few messages, and I just kind of we're at 35 minutes already, and I just want to make sure that we're giving messages to people who are listening and haven't left us already. I'll be reading today. I'm just going to do a quick poll. I love Matt Kahn's work. I think he is absolutely brilliant. And I do have his Healing Mantra Oracle deck. And, I was like debating on going somewhere this week, and I was with a friend, and she's like, I'm just going to play a card. And I just constantly was like, I don't know if I want to go there. I don't know if I want to do this. And the card was, anytime you waver, it's a no. And I thought, oh, yeah, that is so simple, but yet so profound. Anytime we make that decision to waver, it really should be a no. And then also remember, if you haven't agreed to the StreamYard user agreement, we only see Facebook user. So if you could please put your name in the comments section. I know I just got a couple good mornings. So please do that. So Kathy is with us today. Kathy's card is Soothing Impatience. There is nothing to do but wait. Yeah, that's a tough one because it's always hard to be in the space of the pause. But, that is really a wonderful place to be too. I always want to use the metaphor or the example of the cocoon, right? The cocoon, that has to happen. We can't go from caterpillar to butterfly without that space of the pause. And that really, when we're living in the moment, gosh, what a bunch of wonderful free time to really create and do whatever you want, just to be and to experience. Etienne, do you want to give a reading at all or message, or do you want me to continue with the deck here?
You can continue, or I can. I don't have access to the names on my side.
Oh, okay. Tina Flood is on there. If you want to give a message to Tina.
Sure. Some of my messages, for you, Tina, is there's an evolutionary process. Okay, I want you to come along with me on this. It takes time to go to go through the different levels of consciousness. And as we go through the different levels of consciousness, it never gets as bad as it was. I'll say that. We keep moving in a direction that is more clean, more pure. We never return to as bad as it was. And there's this home that's in the distance for you that you've been seeking for a very, very long time. And patience is the key here. And know that, if I can say it this way, God loves you and cares for you and has given you all good things, and continue in the direction that you're going, even in spite of the memories that you may be hanging on to. Just continue with the vision that life is getting lighter, so to speak. Okay. And I'll leave that with you.
That is beautiful. Let's see. We have Mimi with us today. Let's see. And so your card today, Mimi, is Liberating Love. I allow myself to receive all of the fulfillment I am willing to give. That message is really about, I think a lot of times we don't dream big enough. We often are boxed in by what was given to us, what the expectations were from our families, from our friends. And, I always say, if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. It's not supposed to be comfortable. It's not supposed to be safe when you are creating and designing what you want in this existence. So, it can be safe, but make it a little nervous, think when you think about it, when you create it, sweat a little, make sure the stomach has like little butterflies, like, oh, I don't know. Wouldn't that be really cool? Like, that's the fun part of this life is really, you're like what ATN was saying before, it is kind of a movie. You're the director. You're the creator. You wrote the script. You're still writing it. You get a star in it. You are the headline. What do you want it to look like? Make sure that you're in charge of your own movie and you're not just filling in as a back person on someone else's. All right. Etienne, do you want to do one more?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Stacy's still here. If somebody's still in that hasn't been given a message, could you just put your name in the comment section?
Put your name in the comment section. Put your name.
Otherwise, we just get Facebook user and hi.
Yeah, it's a little bit more direct energy when we have a name.
Yeah. Anything, let's talk about you a little bit more, ATN. So, I've had readings with you numerous times, and I think I have pretty much referred anyone that I know to you, because I really think your teachings are profound and contain a level of truth that isn't found just anywhere. And so if someone wants to book a reading with you, how would they go about doing that? Well,
there is a scroll that's going on the bottom of our screen, and hopefully the viewer can see that. So all my information is at my website, and I usually do an hour session, unless someone wants something different, but that's the norm. I'm available various times throughout the week or the weekend. My readings tend to be more teaching types of readings, really honing into the purpose, because the two fundamental questions that people have is, who am I and why am I here?
Absolutely.
And those two questions have been around for a very, very long time in our search for understanding, because many of us have lived our lives mechanically. We're born, we go to a good school, hopefully. We get an education, we get a job, we marry, we have kids, we retire, and then we die. That's kind of a mechanical way in our culture, and that in worldwide and how we live. And that's a service to that, again, that ego consciousness. But when we serve the one who sent us, there's more aliveness, there's more adventure, there's more fun, there's more taking chances and risks with rewards, so to speak. And we all have a yearning in our heart. I want to do this. I want to do this. And oftentimes that want and yearning still comes from the ego. But what does happiness, or let me just say it this way, what does God want? Okay. And so in my readings, I usually emphasize the questions of, what's needed, what's my joy, and what's my gift. And that's unique to each individual. That helps to outline or give a blueprint of, who am I? Why am I here? Who am I? Basically is I'm the agency, ways, and means, okay, for divine. And why am I here? Well, that comes into that unique desire of the heart. What is it? What is it in me? And I do my best to facilitate the opening of that awareness of why I'm here. So it takes it can take 5 minutes or it can take an hour.
Yeah, I get it. Allie did comment. Do you have any messages for Allie?
Sure. Allie, there's two words, devotion and dedication, come to my awareness. Take up make your mind up. make your mind up. Stick to the plan, so to speak. Really take a stand and devote your energy to what is primary in your heart. And it's almost like going back to school. Doesn't have to be, it can be, but there's a new study here. And devote all your energy to this one plan, and don't waver. Don't waver. It's devotion is a word of love. Have intimacy for your vision, and everything else follows that. It's kind of like seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything else follows. And so, Allie, devote and dedicate what is truly in your heart, and watch everything else collaborate around that. And I'll leave you with that.
I'd like to just show your book again. The Sun Has No Shadow can be found on Amazon. And Etienne, you're based in Wisconsin. You're really not that far from me in Madison, correct? Or Madison area?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I can talk with people either on Zoom or phone.
Yeah. And then I also have the Living Sacred Soul Oracle deck. That's available on my website, which is scrolling at the bottom, also for sale. So,
and you designed that cover, right? And you designed the cards?
So I did the cards.
Okay.
I did the cards. It's a 54 card deck. And then the cover, I sent an outline of what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And then I got this, which was so much better than what I designed and perfect. But I went, I worked with an artist based out of Australia who channels. So, okay. When I saw this, I was like, ooh, I felt like I created it, but I don't have the artistic ability to do that. But yeah, anyway, the card deck got here in, August, and, it's slowly but surely selling. And I've been doing a lot of it just has opened up a lot of doors for me,
Nice.
just going to different places, showcasing that, doing readings. And then, my goal is to, my reach has been, more regionally, versus like what I've done in the past, which is not going to be what I'm going to be doing in the future, which was very local. Right. So it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to create something. It's also fun to, like Oracle decks, you're working with spirit when you're pulling those cards. And so like, I hoped that they worked, but now I know that they do. And I pull, that's the only deck I use now. And it's like, I just can't believe I don't believe I created it. Like I channeled it.
Yeah.
Like I have very little recollection.
Well, your true eye.
Yeah, my true eye, where I stepped aside, because it's like even when I read the descriptions, it was like of the cards, I like the individual cards, it would be like it was almost like I was relearning what I said. Like, where did that come from? So it's beautiful. I love creating that way, and I'm actually like slowly starting to work on a second deck. So
Nice.
It's fun. Well, thank you today for joining us, Etienne.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate
all of your profound wisdom. And I hope if anyone has found some light in what you have said, that they book a reading with you, because I think the readings and your teachings are very profound to one's life. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you for the invitation, Michelle.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.